As a CTO, you sit at the crossroads of diagnostics, data, and digital transformation. How do you define your mission in shaping the model clinical laboratory?
Yeah, look, the mission of Siemens Healthineers as a company is that.
What advice would you give to startups or emerging biotech companies developing next generation informatics solutions for the diagnostic space?
Yeah, that's a very important question.
Welcome to Life Science Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Sandal Karnanidhi. And in today's conversation, we'll be exploring scientific innovation, digital transformation, and the future of diagnostics, and how Siemens Healthineers is shaping the next generation of lab and clinical technologies. Our guest for today is Dr. Dirk Heckel, Chief Technology Officer at Siemens Healthineers. He brings an exceptionally impressive professional background and an inspiring leader who has been driving innovation at the intersection of science, data, and healthcare transformation. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to feature on our show.
Thank you, Santil. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to be on your podcast. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
Sure. So, could you start by sharing your journey? What inspired your path into technology and informatics, and how did you arrive at Siemens Healthineers?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I studied biology back in Germany, where I grew up and I was raised, and then I got interested in science. So biology was the science of choice I studied, and then pretty quickly after I finished my studies, I did my PhD in cancer research, and after that research phase, I felt I wanted to be involved in something more applied, something that is really helping patients every day, and something that can be translated into tools that healthcare professionals can use to help patients. So from that university career that was very short, I moved into industry. I started at Kaizen in Germany. I was working there to develop their diagnostic portfolio, including companion diagnostic kits with pharma, system development to enable the core lab and point of care platforms to do more decentralized testing. And after that initial phase, I moved to France. I went to join bioMérieux as head of R&D for molecular diagnostics, spent 7 years there, and moved more and more into that question: how can multiple data that are generated within the course of a dive here over to the US and joined Beckman Coulter Diagnostics, and later the conglomerate that is the holding of Beckman Coulter Diagnostics, Danaher, and it was responsible for strategic innovation for diagnostics. And in that context, given the recent technology developments in that space, obviously we were looking a lot already into what can informatics, what can diagnostics, how can diagnostic tools be enhanced and augmented through AI and other technology. And after spending 2 years in startup consulting, which was very informative and very interesting to see how startups are addressing this question, this challenge, I actually got the opportunity to join Siemens Healthineers as CTO of Diagnostics to drive the future of how we can use our systems and our informatics platforms and also the core capabilities we have in Siemens Healthineers around AI and supercomputing. How can we leverage this and bring it together, connect the dots for the benefits of patients and solving these challenges in healthcare?
Okay. It's interesting how your career combined both science and technology so seamlessly.
Well, I don't know if it's so seamlessly as it seems sometimes, because I do think in order to enable clinical insights, patient insights with technology tools, that combination with science is very essential. So from the beginning, you need to ask yourself the question: what can informatics, what can tools, technology tools help to support the problem or to solve the problem that you want to solve? and how can they contribute to solving the problem without leading to things like complacency, kind of relying just on technology. I think it's very important that these solutions are thoroughly validated. It's very important that they integrate well in the healthcare ecosystem, the healthcare environment. And it's very important that all of these things are considered from the very beginning, and to make that connection and integration seamless in the end.
Okay, nice. As a CTO, you sit at the crossroads of diagnostics, data, and digital transformation. How do you define your mission in shaping the model clinical laboratory?
Yeah, look, the mission of Siemens Healthineers as a company is that we pioneer breakthroughs in healthcare for everyone, everywhere, sustainably. And what does that mean for diagnostics? It in a period where lab diagnostics had been challenged for many years by staff shortages, cost pressure, and so on and so forth. One of the key priorities, one of our key strategic focus areas, is really enabling operational efficiency in the diagnostic lab, helping our customers with these challenges, and applying not only technology and science, but also informatics tools to make this work more attractive, and just counteract against these trends that are making it difficult for not only the labs, but the whole hospital to stay profitable, and to deliver high quality services to the patients they serve.
Yeah, and that's really a strong point, right? Especially about bridging data and clinical practices together. What does lab informatics transformation mean to you? And how has that definition evolved in the past decade?
Yeah, maybe let me start to answer the last part of the question first. How has it evolved? So where do we come from? So when I joined, for example, Beckman Coulter Diagnostics, also almost 10 years ago, it was mainly about being able to connect different platforms, different systems that are operating in the diagnostic lab to each other, being capable of automatically deploying samples on different platforms, not having to do that manually, being able to collect information at one point through systems that connect the different systems that are driving these analytical platforms, and trying to bring different streams of work together in a way that they're easier to execute. I think that has come a long way in the meantime, because this integration has been becoming more seamless. I think for many companies like ours, and also others, developing solutions that are designed to be integrated, that are designed to work seamlessly together, and that are allowing to bring results we're getting from patient samples together in one place to act on them, has been a big focus. Nevertheless, as I said before, I think staff shortages, cost pressure, increasing demand of testing is something that is still ongoing, and we need to continue maximizing and optimizing operational efficiencies and automation in the labs, so that they can keep up with the demand, with kind of just that ecosystem, that environment they're living in, and freeing up time to focus on things that are more important than just maintaining the equipment that they're having, which is patient care and supporting their providers.
Okay, that's a great explanation. Laboratories are becoming increasingly digital, connected, and data driven. From your perspective, what are the biggest technological shifts reshaping clinical lab workflows today?
Yeah, I think one trend to mention here is that interoperability of data still is a challenge up until this day, right? We have that integration and has been increasing within the lab, so information and data that are handled and managed within the lab. But I think we also need to think about data points that are generated outside of the lab. So all the way from where a sample is collected, patient history, and then all the way into what is the context of a certain data set that is delivered as the result of lab testing to a provider. So in order to do that today, there's still hurdles in very disparate implementation of informatic ecosystems in health systems. They're unfortunately not very homogeneous and very harmonized. So being able to integrate these data points together with what the lab is creating as data points is something that is going to be essential in the future to deliver more value. Also being able to integrate data that are less structured, right? Integration of non-structured data, all the way to modeling also of lab operations and helping to make the right decisions even automatically to optimize lab workflows and to react to peaks in the daily workflow or optimize quality control, maintenance of the systems, and so on and so forth. So that makes you think of agentic AI, right? How can agents that are specifically dedicated to solving these kind of challenges and problems, how can they help solve these problems and automate the maintenance and the operation of a lab and freeing up time of clinical lab professionals for other tasks. So I think that's two of the so AI agents, interoperability. Maybe the other thing is also twinning of lab operations. So really kind of generating digital twins to learn more through the data that are generated, how the future lab configuration and the future lab optimization should be thought about and can be implemented also on a personalized way for a specific environment in a specific health system.
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. How is Siemens Healthineers leveraging informatics to simplify and standardize complex lab processes while maintaining quality and compliance?
Yeah, I think it all starts with the systems that we are developing to address this need for high automation and high integration. So giving you one example, last year we launched what we call the Italica integrated automation. So that is a platform that actually integrates the transportation and management of samples within the system. So this is an industry first. It reduces the footprint of it reduces the footprint of the system while at the same time increasing throughput and allowing a modular system to really optimize logistics and operations in a scalable manner. Combined with our track automation, this can lead to almost infinitive possibilities of automating. And that obviously comes then also with informatics that needs to organize and needs to orchestrate this process. So we are working on continuously improving our lab informatics platform. We are modernizing it. We've been showing in a first customer preview session at ADLM this summer the next version of this informatics pipeline, and we continue to work on refining the capabilities, refining also the user interaction with these software tools, and linking them very closely to our automated systems to make that automation and operational efficiency more seamless and more effective for our customers.
Can you share an example of how informatics has directly improved diagnostics or patient outcomes?
Yeah, one example maybe to think about is the what we like to call main to result integration. So if a certain sample is taken at one place somewhere in a health system and needs to be quickly treated or needs to be quickly analyzed to allow timely treatment of a patient, for example, by prioritizing these samples or this sample, specific sample for one patient throughout the whole workflow of a complex health system. So we call that stat testing, right? A sample that has high emergency or high urgency to being tested. Informatics helps to drive that, right? Informatics kind of can indicate the sample is coming when it's drawn. It's making sure that the automated platforms are treating these samples in priority and are operating right at the arrival of the sample to get this turnaround time as short as possible, and that obviously helps patients. Um, and another thought in that direction, or another impact in that direction, is that smart sample handling in our track automation, for example, also managed by informatics, is helping to just use the existing resources in the lab much more efficient, and are leading to much better turnaround times and quicker results that then obviously also lead in quicker treatment of the patients in general. And maybe a last example, which is a little bit in a different area. So this is more lab operations, but the question is also, how can we generate additional insights based on laboratory results? So for example, we have what we call the ELF test. So that's the enhanced liver fibrosis test that helps physicians to determine the severity of liver fibrosis in symptomatic patients. So this is actually an example where an algorithm is combining the three results that are generated on our immunoassay platform that are underlying this ELF score that we're reporting. So this AI-generated algorithm is operating in the background to calculate a final result, and is then providing much more insightful information to the physician to assess the condition of a patient.
Okay. Yeah, this example perfectly connects a technological framework with its real world clinical value. The doctors rely on labs every day, but many labs are short staffed. How can technology help doctors and lab professionals keep working closely together even with fewer people?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it goes back to some of the things I've mentioned before. If doctors and lab professionals want to and need to work more closely together, they need to have the time to do so in an environment where, as I mentioned before, staff shortages, burnout, increasing demand are the rule. And again, seamless digital integration, seamless automation, um, automating manual steps to free up time so that the existing lab professionals have more time to do less of these maintenance and operational tasks, and have more time to interact and communicate with their physicians that they're generating these results for, that they're not treating patients, the better it is, right? So that this continuous development of looking into how can we better improve operational excellence? How can we better help them integrate new tests? How can we reduce tasks like quality control, instrument maintenance to a minimum? And all of that is possible through the combination of engineering solutions, automation solutions, and then informatics that is using these resources in an optimized way. And then I think beyond that, there will be gaps based on the architecture and the current way of how lab diagnostics is provided or is carried out in the labs. So filling these gaps with other solutions like robotics that we also have started working on, to really replace as many manual tasks as possible through automation and smart use of resources, is then freeing up that time that is necessary for a meaningful interaction between lab and doctors.
Yeah. And that's a great success story, right? And you can really relate how smart workflows can lead to better outcomes.
Yes.
Many doctors said insurance and cost issues affect which test they can order. How can better lab systems or tools help doctors make the right testing choice for patients despite these limits?
Yeah, I believe you're probably referring to a recent survey that we've conducted. We were asking more than 400 doctors about what is impacting their ordering practice. And in that survey, what came out is that more than 3/3 of the doctors and of the physicians, at the time when they're ordering a test, they have no visibility if that test is going to be reimbursed. and but by the patient's insurance, because they don't have that visibility and that connection to these data. And if they have, so we also learned that 60% of doctors that do have that visibility have been postponing or canceling diagnostic testing based on the fact that they knew there would be no reimbursement. So that's actually concerning data here. And obviously, we as a medtech provider, we don't have direct influence on how doctors are generating their orders. They have to decide what is right for their patient. But we do know that it's important, and I mentioned that before, to integrate more data points around the patient, integrate more data points that inform that decision, and that can help on one hand side to generate the visibility on what's going to be reimbursed and what's actually meaningful and helpful for the patient. And on the other hand, if we think about things like clinical decision support or evidence studies on how lab testing can influence decision making positively or patient outcomes positively, we are delivering indirectly information to the physicians and the doctors that they can leverage to make these ordering decisions and decide for themselves what is the right thing to do. And I think in educating our customers, our lab professionals as well, they can help in that communication and that dialogue with their doctors to think these use cases through and make sure they understand what's the best decision in terms of ordering tests at what point in the patient care journey to drive towards cost efficiency and the best outcomes for the patients.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for sharing the details. More patients are asking doctors for specific tests based on their own research. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, we asked that question as well in our survey, and it seems that they do. So patients do have specific expectations and ask the question. Interestingly, for tests that doctors order, most of the patients, I think 95%, are trusting their provider to order the most appropriate test. The picture is a little different if we look at tests that are not ordered. So if they think from their personal education through internet, social media, or friends or family members, they should be getting a certain test because of a certain indication, and the doctor is not ordering it, then 87% of the doctors said, 80% of the patients said they're not necessarily trusting their doctor to advise against a certain test. Patients are not in agreement for that question with their provider and their doctor. Obviously, that you're running because patient-demanded testing can lead to confusion, can lead to results that are not clear how they need to interpret it or what should be done with them as a next step. So it's an interesting area that again, the doctors and the lab need to have discussions about, and there needs to be clinical research study and evidence that typically are used and should be used to determine if a test is indicated for a certain patient or not. So providing that visibility, providing that that education on the evidence that is generated around lab testing is an important factor to have that conversation with their patients.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a big shift by how people approach the healthcare today.
Yeah.
We are hearing more about dark labs and labs that are mostly automated. How do you see automation and AI changing the way labs work and helping lab professionals focus on what matters most?
Yeah, we touched on some of that already before. If you think about that, in the United States, approximately one lab professional comes on every 1,000 Americans. That means there is a lot of coverage to be had by these lab professionals for testing. And as I mentioned before, staff is short, testing demand increases, cost pressure is there. So through further automation, all the way to where in the end you just would have one or two operators running a whole large lab, that is operating automatically and is delivering or is um, covering the task all the way from picking up the samples, putting them in the right place, getting them tested for the right assays, and then reporting the right results back in a very organized and very informed way so that physicians immediately can take action, um, is going to help with a lot of these challenges and is also going to make the lab a place where maybe more people want to work again, because they can focus on being efficient for the patient, being efficient for the provider, and delivering um, information without all of the challenges that they have right now. Give you another example. If you can reduce, for example, workplace injuries by enabling a robot that can decap samples, also by that means eliminating the exposure to biohazard materials. Samples are potentially biohazards, so there's a risk of exposure there. You can reduce stress and errors by automating and how these samples are handled. This makes the place to work much more attractive than it is in many places today. So evolving on that roadmap, getting all the way to fully automated labs, I think is not only a trend, but also a necessity to getting back to a healthy workspace there that is also delivering high quality results, supporting healthcare.
Yeah, that's interesting. Most doctors said they would like more feedback and guidance from labs. How can new lab technology can help?
Yeah, maybe I can start citing some of the results also of the survey that we had, just to indicate how important lab results are for physicians. So 98% of the physicians that were questioned in that survey that we did not only said that they would modify or they have modified in the past a treatment plan based on the results they're getting from the lab. So the lab result is a very essential piece in their decision making for the treatment plan. They say that it's very important for them also to justify their clinical course of action. So it's supportive information that guides them how to make their decisions and what to do next for the patient. And more in general, 99% said it just helps them to make their job in a much better way. And 100% agree that lab results actually help to streamline how they're also using other health resources. So, for example, imaging or biopsy and so on and so forth. So it plays a central role in that. Lab plays a central role in how doctors do their jobs and how decision making is informed. And what their expectation is to be supported with this are two things. One is improved communication between the lab and the physician to better understand what lab results mean, to better understand how to interpret it and how to think about next steps. But it also means that they want to be informed if something goes wrong in the lab, if there is some delay in testing, if some of the results are going to take longer than they thought, because that directly impacts the decision they're going to take. So that's one expectation they have. And the second one is innovation. Innovation meaning that more and more tests are implemented that generate deeper insights into a certain condition and a certain treatment path for patients. And this is not only a means of differentiation for health systems and diagnostic labs. It also helps them just to be more impactful for the patient journey and to better inform physicians. But in order to do that, these tests need to be implemented. So if you think about back to the example I gave before, one laboratory professional for 1,000 Americans, and these people actually are validating and maintaining more than 80,000 types of laboratory testing in US laboratories. And then there's on top of that, every year, 500 new tests that are FDA approved and that become available. So there's a huge kind of decision making of the involved stakeholders to implement new tests. There's a huge effort to validate these tests, and there's a huge effort to educate not only the lab personnel, but also the physicians that are using and ordering these tests, how to use them and what additional impact they're providing. So again, optimizing and streamlining operations is freeing up that time to have that conversation between the doctor and the lab professional. And reducing maintenance tasks is also helping with the lab professionals being able to implement these new tests and also being much more upfront in terms of information they can share with their doctor colleagues.
Yeah, interesting. That's a great insight. As lab transition from traditional assays to data-rich AI-enabled environments, what mindset and infrastructure changes do they need to adopt?
Yeah, I think so. Siemens Healthineers is actually the company in the industry that has the most FDA approved AI enhanced products on the market. And since inception of using AI in that context, we always have been addressing that with the goal of building reliable, accurate, unbiased algorithms and products that actually protect the patient. And I think that last part is very important. It's relatively easy compared to the whole process that is needed to make something safe for the patient. It's relatively easy to build the initial algorithm that can provide some information. What is much more important and is much more hard and takes much more time and effort is validating this algorithm so that it really delivers accurate results and that it's excluded that is harming the patient in any way. So I think that's a key mindset to really be brought to the table when you think about how to implement AI. I think another thing is also to make sure that in the systems we build, we have checks and balances can um, that can prevent that people are relying too much on AI. Obviously, there's even with the best AI agents, there's going to be potential errors. There's going to be situations where there's a use case where there still needs to be a human to control and be a safety check or an automatic safety check needs to be implemented. So really thinking it through. If you want to if you want to employ AI to help drive operational efficiency or to help create insights, how do I make that fail safe? How do I validate it in a way that is really helping and not creating any unwanted damage either for the operational side or the patient side?
And it's all about making things simpler and smarter, right?
Yeah, it's about making things simpler and smarter, but it's also we need to understand. You asked in the beginning of the interview of the podcast. You asked, is it easy or how easy is it to combine science with technology? I think this is at the interface of science and technology where you really need to understand what's the clinical problem to be solved. How can I validate that the AI that is helping me to solve this problem is effective and also safe for the patient? And what does it take to do that in a way that it's validated and in the end also can obviously meet requirements for approval of these products as IVDs.
What does a digital mature lab looks like in 5 years? What are the essential capabilities it must have?
Yeah, I mentioned some of those already. I think data integration and interoperability is one of the key capabilities that is still a challenge up until today. So how can different systems, and I'm not talking just about the lab in its confinement, but also different labs across the health system or data points outside of the lab. How can they effectively be integrated and talk to each other? That is a key capability that must be built to really leverage modern algorithmic informatics to its best extent. Um, the other thing that is probably going to be more and more important, also giving again the cost pressure and in general the increasing cost of our healthcare and the struggle we have with that. How can these tools help to generate more better business insights for hospitals? How can hospitals use these tools to make better decisions about what tests to do where, when, what service to implement where, uh, how to um, how to route patients and samples through the organization to make best use of their capabilities of monetizing these services and really creating these business insights. I think is a big trend that we're going to see more in the future. And well, another thing I can think of, going back a little bit more specifically to the lab, I think continuity of service is important. So using AI tools to and I talked about lab twinning before. How can we use the understanding of challenges to that lab operation to make it more resilient against interruptions, against maintenance challenges, against supply challenges, which also happen. Also automating supply, making sure that supply is always there, also in peak times at the level that it's needed. So really kind of integrating a lot of different information around the operation and beyond the lab information to make it an ecosystem that interacts with each other and can optimize for different situations.
How is Siemens Healthineers supporting its customer in its journey towards next generation digitally enabled translation research?
Yeah, again, starting maybe with the lab efficiency. So from a strategic perspective at Siemens Healthineers Diagnostics, and you may have heard that already through our discussion, we're looking at two main strategic drivers. One is the lab efficiency to really enable our customers to be operational efficient. And the other part is in innovation. How can we help to drive innovation, specifically clinical innovation? On the lab efficiency side, I already mentioned our Italica integrated automation platform, which is integrating not only sample transportation, but also intelligent use of samples within the systems. So that's, again, a unique system on the market that is helping to drive lab efficiencies on a smaller scale, specifically for labs that don't need the very big systems that come with track automation. But then this is also scalable and flexible. So with the track information, track automation that you can combine with it, you get much more scalable and much more automated. So for example, the combination has been able, with that combination, we've been able to automate 25 manual steps already that the lab personnel had to take care of before. And we're continuing in that journey. We're continuing to use our core competencies in engineering, software development, and AI to combine all of those to make these processes and systems even more effective and more optimized and smarter. We also recently launched our Italica Connect software that is part of our point of care offering, which is also helping to much more integrate the point of care landscape. And this is a software that is specifically dedicated for the point of care coordinator that has the necessity to manage all the point of care devices of a healthcare system, and these can be up to thousands. And you also they may have Siemens Healthineers equipment as well as third-party equipment. And this software solution is integrating all of those into a very simple dashboard to allow that efficient management. So that's another example. And maybe then as the last example that I also mentioned already is the training of customer labs and really using that specifically to optimize how labs are installed from the very beginning, how labs are operated, and how we can help drive this efficient operation of the lab, even through consulting services and our digital tools that help with understanding these workflows. So that's the lab efficiency side. And then on the innovation side, I mentioned the ELF assay. So that is what we call a MAAA. MAAA stands for multivariate algorithm-assisted analysis. So it basically means combining results from a single platform through an algorithm that is then delivering a much deeper insight that can be actioned at the physician side. So we are actively working in large consortia and innovation partnerships with KOLs, with health systems, and so on, to get access to many more data points and much more patient and specific clinical focus areas to better understand to analyze, actually, also with the help of AI, what are informative markers that, if combined in something that is calculated by an AI algorithm, helps with better decision making. And obviously, we want to reduce that to very informative and very valid and very validated um, tools that provide insights beyond just the testing in the lab that help provide us to treat patients, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, that's a great example how big players can make a real difference in research. What advice would you give to startups or emerging biotech companies developing next generation informatics solutions for the diagnostic space?
Yeah, that's a very important question, specifically for startups in the informatics and AI space. The first point I would make is you really need to understand the clinical problem that you're trying to solve in detail. It's not enough to just have a cool technology that can do something in a feasibility study. You need to understand, how is it driving clinical action? How is your solution solving the problem that is existing and it has a significant value in healthcare? And after having figured out that clinical value proposition and clinical problem you solve, I think it's very important to anticipate how this is going to be deployed, because it's not going to be deployed in a vacuum. It's deployed in an existing healthcare informatics ecosystem, which, as I said before, is not very harmonized and not very homogeneous. So really thinking it through, how can it be deployed? How can it be scaled? And what are maybe the collaborations you need to being able to do that? How are you going to get paid for it? Who's going to be willing to pay for it? And what additional clinical or medical value are you delivering to justify that payment? So that are a few of the things that are really important to think about. And then maybe on the development or even the cost planning side, and also the discussions you need to have with your investors, you need to anticipate how much time, effort, and money it takes to generate evidence that is supporting your claim that you're making to solve a clinical problem, to validate that the solution that you're proposing is actually capable of solving this problem. It's not going to be enough to have a nice paper presentation and show the theoretical value that a solution has. You need to be ready to generate evidence with clinical labs and clinical research studies, evidence studies that demonstrate that value to the medical community, to people that think about integrating something in the standard of care and into guidelines, and also in the end for your investors that need to believe in your success in the end.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast will appreciate this insight. If you could predict one transformative trend that will redefine lab informatics in the next decade, what would it be?
Yeah, maybe one of the biggest trends is a more patient-centric and wellness longevity type of awareness of patients about their health and their healthcare, and also information about their health. So I think we're seeing a much stronger involvement and a much stronger engagement of many people into the maintenance and in improvement of their personal health. And it started from sensors like the Apple Watch or the Fitbit and things like that, measuring your steps. And it's going on with your continuous glucose monitor, and your Aura Ring, and so on and so forth. And that actually leads to the generation of more and more data. And these data can and should be integrated into decision making also in healthcare. So again, the interoperability of these data, the capability of reading out this data longitudinally and personally to inform healthcare, but also inform your personal actions of how to take care of your health, how to manage your lifestyle and impact on your health, hopefully will lead in the future to much more wellness care and much less sick care. really kind of driving that awareness and driving that own investment of people in their health.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And finally, how do you envision Siemens Healthineers role in shaping the future of lab informatics and precision diagnostics?
Yeah, I think we will continue to focus on our strength and building our strength, certainly in the engineering and software development and system development area, and then building out a solid roadmap. And we're actively working on this on the informatics side to add more and more capabilities to enable efficient operations of labs, insights into operational efficiency, insights into business aspects of the lab operations and the hospital operations, all the way to insights into clinical data points and how they can be used and interpreted in the context of patient care. We will also execute on our roadmap to enable lab professionals to do less of these operational tasks and focus on what counts most, which is having quality conversations with the doctors and thinking about what's best for the patient in a given situation and how to interpret these lab tests. And AI will play a significant role in this. And I mentioned before, we are the company with the most AI products on the market. Again, we will leverage that strength and continue developing that portfolio and that roadmap. And then we also want to make sure we address clinically valuable and critical problems with diagnostics, keeping the patient at the forefront of all of these considerations. We want to keep the patient safe, but on the other hand, integrating more and more data points to generate more insights that can help guide not only patient treatment when they're sick and when they're presenting with symptoms, but also when they're healthy and are interested in how to manage their health and how to be well and live long. And finally, in order to do that, I think another very important aspect of that is we cannot do all of this alone. I think it's important to partner, finding the right partners, entering the right partnerships at the right level with the leading labs out there, with research institutions, industry partners, and consortia to drive more insights into biology. I think there's a lot we still can learn and have to learn, and there's a lot of very exciting high throughput screening tools that can be applied in clinical research to find new ways of supporting healthcare and then translating them into great products. And we are actively working in key clinical areas on doing so.
Okay, yeah, that's a wonderful vision. That's all we have for today. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. It was truly an interesting and insightful discussion. Thank you again for your time and for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure.